Father, we had a scriptural question for you in regard to Romans, St. Paul's epistle to the Romans, chapter 12, verse 16. What exactly does St. Paul mean there when he says, "Be not wise in your own conceits"? What does that mean?
Well, if you look at the Latin and you look at the Greek, actually, you find that that translation also necessarily carries an interpretation. And the sense of it, when you read it in the Greek, is not to be, well, I mean, it's translated as prudent. But, I mean, I suppose one could say even clever, but not to be prudent within yourself. In other words, well, that can be understood in different ways. St. Paul's economy of expression sometimes can be open to a lot of interesting interpretation, right? Wise in your own conceits. We associate wisdom as being a good thing, right? But how could you be wise in conceit? And what does it mean in your own conceits? What does that even mean, right, in our modern language? Well, when somebody is, let's say, conceited, would you say that that makes them consider themselves their own reference point? That they're pretty much self-contained and they know everything, they have all the knowledge and all the prudence and wisdom that they need. And so they're just kind of bound up within themselves, unto themselves. And they don't need any input from God or man. This is, in a sense, what Lucifer was like, unfortunately. He felt he was sufficient unto himself, that he contained within himself everything he could possibly need. He truly is an example of being wise in your own conceit. So, saying it's interesting when you read that passage because, as I recall, there was one epistle that concludes with that verse, and the next Sunday the epistle actually repeats that verse and continues the passage from there. As though the nexus is that particular passage between the conclusion of the one for the one Sunday and the beginning for the next Sunday. It is repeated there twice, consecutively, as if the church is kind of trying to emphasize something to us, okay? So, when we say somebody's conceited, he's stuck up, he's arrogant, he's selfish, all those things go into being conceited, right? And I guess that would apply here. But if you go to the Greek, I don't think the word conceit is actually present there. It's to be wise in oneself. But I think that carries that idea that one himself personally is the measure of wisdom and prudence unto himself. He is the arbiter of all, and therefore he becomes paradoxically the fool, a fool of fools, because it is precisely those people who are wise in their own conceits. They're very smart, but they're not as smart as they think they are, and they inevitably get into trouble, cause trouble. You might even say that the most serious problems in the history of mankind, the most damaging things that people have done, have been done by very, very smart, very brilliant people. But they just weren't quite as smart as they thought they were. And they used whatever smarts they had to do damage. And the damage was really bad. I mean, I think of Stalin. I think about Lenin. I think of Napoleon. I think of these people who are very, very arrogant and proud and thought, yes, they will be the conquerors. They will be the leaders. Even those who say, we will lead you to the promised land of the communist workers' paradise. And, they made these grandiose promises and they had these illusions of grandeur that they were going to accomplish this where everyone else has failed. Talk about being wise in your own conceits. So when St. Paul says those words, he's admonishing us to be humble in our thoughts and not to consider ourselves, well, not to be know-it-alls, to be willing to learn from God and to question ourselves, question not only our knowledge, but question our motives. Only God is wise in himself. Right? Only God can be wise in himself. And those who style themselves wise in themselves will find out very rapidly they're not. And in aspiring to be God-like, they become real devils.